This is something Lauren used to have me make for her all the time. It's a not fried chicken breast sandwich, but unlike most chicken sandwiches, the breast here is properly sized and shaped for a sandwich. And I top it with this garlic aioli that I used to make with raw egg yolk, but now I know that garlic itself is an emulsifier, so you don't have to use egg if you don't want to. One of many reasons I am generally not a fan of chicken breast is the modern product is just so huge. It's far too thick for a sandwich, so I'm going to get 2 sandwiches out of this one large breast. And I could cut it in half there, but if I tilt the angle thusly, I can get rounder, more sandwich-shaped pieces after I butterfly them. And note that my knife is like 2/3 of the way up from the skinny tail end. The half on the left there is thinner, so if I want the 2 pieces to have roughly equal mass, I've got to cut up here. Now to butterfly them. Generally, when you're butterflying things, you want to start by cutting into the thicker side, which is that, the cut side. I'm slicing parallel to the board, about halfway up from the board. Open it like a book, and that seam is going to add thickness to what was the thinner end of that piece. It's now quite even thickness all around. Same deal with this one, cut into the thicker side, which is the cut side. Stop before you go all the way through, open her up. You could trim that little bit down there to make it more sandwich shaped, but these are going to be great as is. Hey, note the grain of the meat fibers all running parallel to each other. The fibers on the surface tend to dry out during cooking, and then they feel stringy as you bite through them. This can be reduced by scoring the meat, very shallow slices against the grain. It's perpendicular to the meat fibers. We're shortening those meat fibers. They change direction up here, and so must I. Same deal on the other side, very, very shallow slashes. If you don't have a very sharp knife, just skip this step. You'll probably end up doing more harm than good. Here on the uncut side of the meat, the grain is harder to see, but look close. You can see all those parallel fibers. Just a little scoring now, and we won't get any long strings of dry meat between our teeth later. The extra surface area we've created will also enhance absorption of our brine. I'm usually not a fan of wet brines. They give poultry the texture of lunch meat, but that actually works for a sandwich, and the added moisture from the brine is particularly good for thin pieces of white meat, which are very apt to dry out. Into a cup, 240 mils of water, I'll put about 15 grams of salt, which is a tablespoon of this Morton kosher. This is for a quick 30 to 60 minute brine. If you wanted to let this brine overnight or something, I would use half as much salt. I'm putting in an equal quantity of sugar. Sugar is one of the flavor-enhancing molecules that can actually fit through meat membranes during a brine. No need to boil this or anything, just give it a stir. If the salt doesn't all dissolve now, it will as the meat sits in here. You get all those submerged in the brine. I'll set that aside, and if I'm going to reuse this cutting board and knife, I've got to wash it because everything else we cut we're going to be eating raw. Aioli. It's going to start with fresh garlic. I'd say at least 1 big clove per sandwich. I'll get them peeled and finely chopped to start with, and then I'll grab my coarse salt, sprinkle that over the top, and use the salt as an abrasive to help me grind the garlic down with the side of my knife. We need to kind of juice the garlic pieces. We need access to all of the emulsifying proteins and fructans and saponins that are inside the garlic tissue. Grab a small dish that's good for stirring, and in goes that garlic. You could do this whole sauce in a mortar and pestle instead. I'm also going to put in a roughly equal quantity of Dijon mustard. Highly optional, but I like how it tastes, and mustard is also an emulsifier, which means I don't have to use quite as much raw garlic, which is of course very strong. Now for just a few drops, and I mean a few drops of oil. I'm using extra virgin olive oil, but if that's too strong for you, use a more refined oil. Get that stirred in until it disappears, and then go in with another little splash. You can add more and more oil with each go. You just can't overwhelm an emulsion with too much oil straight away. There won't be enough other stuff in the bowl to get in between the oil and divide it into tiny droplets that can then be coated with emulsifiers. There's a reason people use egg yolk for this. Yolk is a much more powerful emulsifier. Garlic, in my experience, can only emulsify about 3 times its own weight in oil, but we've got the mustard in there helping out too. I think I got about 3 tablespoons of oil in there now, and check how thick and glossy that spread is. Hey, what would happen if you stirred in too much oil? Well, eventually the aioli would start getting thinner and look kind of greasy like that. There just aren't any emulsifying molecules left for all this new oil I'm pouring in, and so I have tiny bits of emulsion swimming around in a sea of grease. If this happens to you, no problem. Just peel and chop another garlic clove. Grind it down with salt, dump it in there, and it may take some very aggressive stirring before the emulsion reforms, but it should happen eventually. Again, you're basically chopping up all of the free oil in there into droplets to be coated by emulsifiers from the garlic, and there you go. A totally solid gelatinous spread for our sandwiches. It does taste extremely strong right now. If you or anyone you'll be kissing later can't handle that much raw garlic, just let this sit overnight. That pungent allicin in raw garlic will break down significantly by tomorrow. For tonight, maybe just make a HelloFresh, the sponsor of this video and America's #1 meal kit. We got a fit and wholesome box this time. Let's go with that one. I love soup. HelloFresh's newest menu release includes Mediterranean recipes, stuff that's filled with fresh fruits and veggies and nuts and olive oils and fiber-packed whole grains. Really good stuff that's really good for you. We obviously cook our own recipes a lot, but we really appreciate that HelloFresh just takes care of us a few nights a week. You follow the foolproof instructions, they send you everything you need for a meal in exactly the quantities required. There's no waste, there's no worrying about how you're going to use the rest of that box of whatever it is. Nearly all the packaging is recyclable, and it's cheaper than eating out. 72% cheaper, according to a Zagat dining survey. The stock concentrate and the little bit of dairy in this soup really brought the whole thing together, nice and velvety. But the bowl is still mostly just vegetables, lean protein, and water. Whether you want the low-cal boxes or not, vegetarian, whatever, go to HelloFresh.com and use code AdamRagusia16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts. Link and code are in the description for up to 16 free meals. Thank you, HelloFresh. Okay, toppings. I don't usually like tomatoes on burgers, I just think they are redundant with the ketchup, but on this chicken sandwich, I definitely want a big slice of tomato. Our aioli is delicious, but it's not sweet or terribly acidic, and most food needs both of those things. A little nice fresh lettuce, and I have little interest in nearly any sandwich that doesn't have some pickles on it. I'll grab some foil and wrap my culinary brick, aka a brick I found outside. Wrap it in foil to keep everything clean. You don't need this, but some kind of heavy, flat weight really helps. Time to fish the chicken out of the brine. You could just lay it straight into the pan, but it'll brown better and spit way less if you blot it dry on some paper towel first. You certainly don't want additional salt on the surface, but I do want plenty of pepper. Get a pan wide enough to receive the brick later. Get it heating to medium-low. I just want to get it hot enough that butter will do... Oh, not that. That is way too hot. There, nice foamy butter. You could use olive oil, but butter tells you how hot your pan is, and it really spruces up the super lean chicken breast. Get plenty of fat in the pan regardless, because this meat is liable to stick. Pepper side down, mop up all that butter. I'll grind pepper on the reverse side real quick, and then time for the culinary brick. You could use another heavy pan. Anything that's flat, heat-safe, and heavy will work, or don't use any weight, but the weight enhances browning, and it helps you get a flat piece of meat that lies perfectly on a bun. An ovoid chicken breast is very awkward to eat inside a sandwich. The meat's been in there for 2 minutes. Let's check it. Not brown enough yet. Might need to turn the heat up. With a piece of meat this thin, you can just look at the side of it and see how far it's cooked through. After 3 minutes total, these are looking more than halfway cooked inside. I'll go ahead and flip. They shouldn't stick much if you brown them right, but don't go crazy with browning chicken breast. A little brown on these goes a long way. Now, real quick, I'll poke the center of the meat to see how it feels when I know it's still raw in the center. I can feel it's still a little squishy. A cheap thermometer is next to useless for taking the temperature of something so thin. You're going to get false readings from the hotter meat that's closer to the surface. So I'm just going to use my senses. It's been a minute since I flipped. I'll poke again, and I can feel the center feels much more firm. It's bouncy, not squishy. By the time these rest, they'll be done. But I will flip them one more time. Remember, the brick touched raw meat, and then it touched the cooked meat. So out of an abundance of caution, I'm going to give the first side a real quick second sear to kill any surface bacteria. Out to rest. Again, with a piece of meat this thin, you're going to get a lot of heat traveling from the outside into the inside. If anything, you want to pull these when they're a hair undercooked at the center. While my pan is still hot, I can toast the cut sides of my buns. These are brioche buns. Brioche is a rich, sweet bread. I usually think it's overkill with burgers, but with something as lean as chicken breast, I think brioche is a nice complement. I'm going to let this bread and the chicken cool for like 5 minutes. If our aioli gets too hot when we put it on there, the emulsion will break and it won't be thick and creamy anymore. Lettuce as a water barrier and then tomato. Check how nicely that piece of chicken fits on the bun. If it's not enough meat for you, make it a double. Stack on 2 pieces. They still cook much better if you cut them thin. A nice layer of that aioli on there. Very strong raw garlic flavor, but again, if you don't like that, just let it sit for a day at room temperature or a few days in the fridge. A nice layer of my beloved dill pickle chips. The aioli holds them in place. Lid on, and I think that looks awfully nice, don't you? It's been a few years, but Lauren used to have me make these for her all the time. Of course, back then I used raw egg in the sauce, and I'm not missing the egg at all in there now. Okay, let's do the significantly less healthy version. Bun, aioli, tomato slice, American cheese because it melts so well, chicken. Let's do another layer of cheese and chicken. The cheese between the chicken pieces will keep them from sliding around on top of each other. I got my pickles and no lettuce. I do not like cooked lettuce. More foamy butter in the pan. Lay that baby in there, and we already have a weight prepared. Boom! A nice pressed chicken and cheese melt. About a minute and a half later, whoops, she's sticking a little. There we go. Flip her over, mop some butter so it doesn't stick again, replace the weight, and American cheese melts so well that I shouldn't need to cover this, but if you're using another kind of cheese, you could press it for another minute, rip the foil off the brick, and use the foil to tent the sandwich for a sec. Trap some steam, get that cheese melted. Again, I'll give this a final extra flip because that brick had touched raw chicken. Out we go, and this is not the most beautiful sandwich I've ever made, but feels real good as I cut through it. Looks good inside. Tastes real good, especially with those pickles. I hope Lauren doesn't ask me to make this version for her very often. Too much of that would wreck me.